In this video, we're going to be talking about lifetime health. Now, whether it is you yourself or a client, someone you're working with, or potential clients, potential individuals in the future that you're going to be assisting in some form or fashion, whether it's tied to health, directly to healthcare, whether it's tied to fitness, which all of that goes hand in hand. You also figure out prior to getting into the industry, prior to becoming the professional that you will become in the future, right? The professional that you are set out to be. You start trying to have this inner dialogue of where do I fit? Where do I fit into the puzzle of what professional, what career, what path should I choose? And so I like to explain it in the aspect of lifetime health and explain kind of the fluctuation of what people go through on a day-to-day basis, as well as from week to week, month to month, year to year, just throughout the entirety of their life. And everyone goes through this. You go through this, I go through this. Everyone goes through this fluctuation of health. It's on a spectrum, right? It's not always perfect. Your health is not always perfect. You always go through aspects. I'm sure you've gone through injuries, you've gone through illness and sickness, you've gone through different aspects that have shifted and changed your health status. And so I talk about it in a form of discussing the fluctuation of health and then ask this question of where do you fit in that timeline as a practitioner, as a professional, as someone that helps other individuals to achieve a sense of whether it is, and I throw this around loosely, right? Whether it is to become more healthy, whether it's to become more functional or to be able to function, or maybe it's to improve performance and have a more advanced or optimized performance. And so depending on where you feel like you want to assist others to achieve or to overcome is going to kind of dictate what career path or what profession you might set out to achieve. Now, even with kinesiology, even with exercise science, even within this realm, this field per se, there's so many different job opportunities, so many different career paths. So even within exercise science, there's so many different career paths that might fit on this timeline a lot differently. So I try to have this dialogue relatively earlier in someone's career or earlier within someone's educational setting, because you start to process, do I want to work with individuals that are set out to do this or that, or maybe they're overcoming an obstacle and you might have a passion for working with individuals to overcome that obstacle. So this is just a discussion piece. Think of this as a personal / professional growth and development dialogue and discussion. So I bring up this timeline because it gives us a sense, just a very generalized sense of what people go through. Now, this isn't a timeline where you start on one side and you end on the other side. Ultimately, yes, fatality or death is the end result to just life in general. But from a day-to-day perspective, from a week to week, year to year, we don't just start on the left and completely just drift over to the right, right? From a day-to-day perspective, we're constantly fluctuating. We might kind of hone in or hover in an area versus another area for a period of time, for a duration of time. But we don't ultimately just stay in one area unless we're putting in effort to stay in that area, as well as if we're not, we might hinder toward the right side where we're looking at injury and illness. We might hover over there for a while because we're not putting in any effort to improve our health status, to improve our performance, to improve our functionality, and so forth. So I bring you this aspect of fluctuation, right? Let's say just to live, just to breathe, just to wake up, just to be alive, we're in the middle, right? It's not a good day, it's not a bad day, we're just here. And then to take that one step further, drifting to the left, this is improvements. Drifting to the right is regressions or degradation or a decrease in our health status. So toward the left is improvement, toward the right is regressing. So let's say we're just sustaining, we're able to wake up, we're able to breathe, and we're alive, right? And as we drift to the left, we improve and we're able to perform daily functions. We're able to get up, we're able to brush our teeth by ourselves independently. So think of tasks in a sense of independence, right? We can brush our teeth, we can feed ourselves, we can operate a vehicle, we can go about. And if we need to walk to go get groceries, we can get our own groceries. Like, think of daily function as, yes, necessities, but we're able to do that in an independent sense, right? We can operate independently. And as we continue to improve, now we can do recreationally. We're recreationally active. We can, if we want to go, play with our dog, if we want to go play some basketball, we want to go for a jog, we want to go to the recreation center and work out, we want to do these activities, we want to do these things that aren't necessarily, we're not trying to, depends on who asks, we're not trying to compete in a sense of the athletic setting. We're not trying to compete in a tactical setting. We're not trying to compete in a higher level of performance, but we can be a lot more active. We can be in a lot more like vigorous, a higher intensity type of activities. We're doing more than just functioning. We're actually operating at a higher intensity, a higher level. We can burn more calories, be more physically active, and so forth. And then as we do more of this recreational activity, right, and really working on our health and improving our health, our fitness, our function, right, because they all go hand in hand, then we start drifting and we start getting to this optimal state. This means, healthy in a sense of great biomarkers, great, we don't have any sickness or illness. We have great health panels. We, even on top of that, from a fitness level, right? If we need to be strong, we're strong. If we need to be fast, we're fast. If we need to be powerful, we're powerful. Like, we optimize our aspects of both health-related components and fitness-related components. And we have a very high end of this, right? Everything is at a high level. Can you always maintain that? No. Can that change day to day based on fatigue levels, based on accumulated strain? Yeah, that can go down. Like, we can't sustain that indefinitely as we age, as we go through phases. I know I might be speaking to the choir if I say, are you at the peak fitness level you have ever been, right? And some of you may say no. Or if I say, 3 years ago, were you at the peak? If you're at the peak now, were you at the same level as you were 3 years ago? No, maybe you've improved, right? So, like, you were never always there and you had to work and put in effort to get there. Are you always getting optimal amount and quality of sleep? Are you always getting the optimal amount of nutrition, hydration, fueling, all that different stuff that pertains to health, pertains to function, pertains to performance? And I beg the question, can we ever really get there? But with that being said, we kind of fluctuate through. Now, if we get injured, we break our arm, we obtain some kind of illness. It might be something simple. You might get a cold, maybe an injury, you strained a muscle, whatever it might be. It doesn't necessarily, depending on the severity, right? Something simple might not really impact your day-to-day from the aspect of, you can still get up, you can still brush your teeth, you can still, let's say you strained, a muscle, you can still get up and go grocery shopping, or you can still operate a vehicle. It might kind of bother you, might ache a little bit, but you're still able to operate in that sense. It hinders you only in the aspect of irritation, discomfort, and so forth. But if that increases and continues to get worse, then your health starts to get worse, right? So you're not able to do as many things. And let's tie specifically into the functionality sense. Let's say you break something, let's say you re-injure something, to the point where you have to have surgery, you have to have something to provide structure for you to have integrity enough to be able to function, right? But it's so severe, you can't get out of bed, you can't lift stuff on your own, you can't, right? Like, it starts to hinder your ability to do day-to-day stuff. And then ultimately, if the injury is severe enough and the illness is severe enough, that could potentially result in death. So we fluctuate through this aspect in day-to-day life. And where I have this dialogue with a lot of either newer, starting out professionals, practitioners, starting out students, those that are wanting to get into a profession, really solidify what their career track is I ask this question: where do you want to help someone overcome, or where do you want to help someone get to, right? And depending on that setting, might dictate what kind of profession you would like to become. For instance, if you just want to work with someone who's recreationally active, but they have aspirations of being in athletics or pro sports or collegiate sports or whatever it might be, youth sports, trying to be competitive in youth sports. Maybe it's working with select special operational groups and they need to prep for a mission. Maybe you're working with, certain individuals where there is a very high level of fitness, high level of health to be able to overcome and perform at the very highest capacity possible. You might want to work in that area. That might be more performance training, more strength and conditioning, and so forth, right? You might, in combination to that, right? We can also divide it, and I want to have this discussion early on before I start branching into more and more in the aspect of the professions. But you could either go the aspect of testing or training. Are you looking for markers that show where you're at? Are you improving? Are you regressing, and so forth? Or are you doing the training, the prescription that helps you get to where you want to be? So there's two sides to that coin. So just to add that tidbit before we continue to go through this fluctuation, right? So let's say you have someone who is just sustaining life, right? Like they wake up, they breathe, they brush their teeth, but they're not really able to do stuff on their own. They need help getting up off of the couch. They need someone else to do grocery shopping for them. They can't operate a vehicle, maybe don't have the strength, can't maintain posture, whatever it might be, right? Like not able to perform tasks in an independent sense. And so your perspective, your approach might be, okay, how do I test? How do I figure out what needs improvement, where their baselines are at? Or from a training perspective, how do I incorporate in this snazzy phrase of corrective exercise? How do I incorporate exercises that will improve stability, will improve mobility to be able to do these tasks and improve function just for day-to-day life? Now, we don't need a high-end performance coach that works with collegiate athletes or pro athletes to be able to have someone and work with someone that is getting up and being able to sustain. Let's say someone was cleared from the physician. Let's say they're cleared to be able to, they've overcome just the obstacle of an injury or a surgery. The medical professional, the physician has cleared them to do some sort of physical activity, and now they can do stuff, but they're still not independent. They're still trying to overcome the lack of function that maybe they didn't have in the past, or maybe based on the surgery, based on the injury, they're trying to be able to get back to that level of function that they had. So then you start talking about working with special populations that need to go from just being cleared, right? So recently being cleared to now being able to do their job, take care of their kids, function around the household, whatever that might be tied to daily function. You're trying to improve their independence, right? Rewind a little bit and let's talk about, injury and illness. Maybe you're wanting to go the physical therapy track, the PT, OT, a little bit of prevention on the AT side, athletic training, and so forth. Maybe you're wanting to prevent, and I say that very loosely because really it's mitigate. How do we decrease the likelihood and decrease the severity? But maybe we want to work with individuals that have already obtained and have some sort of injury. And so we're trying to help them work around the injury, as well as improve their ability to function and develop re-ingrained motor patterns and develop structure, redevelop function, so that they can be cleared to now do activity on their own and so forth. And that way, when they do activity by themselves, they've instilled proper motor patterns, they've worked musculature and made sure that they're sound enough to do all of the other things by themselves. So from a systematic standpoint, you would think someone gets injured, make sure, they're cleared by medical professionals first. Yes, they can work with a PT, OT, whoever they need to, right? So then they work with physical therapists. Physical therapist has them go through a lot of movement, a lot of physical, from a therapy, reconstruction, redevelopment standpoints. Then they get cleared by the PT. Okay, now they can either embark on this fitness, strength and conditioning journey by themselves, or they start drifting toward maybe a trainer, a strength and conditioning coach, someone that specializes in, okay, you're cleared to just operate. Now let's get you back to a level where you can excel at your job, or maybe you can function a little bit better in your household. And then let's say they are able to move around, able to operate independently. Then, a trainer or strength coach might improve them to, okay, now let's work on a higher level of fitness. Let's decrease your fat percentage. Let's improve our muscle mass, our muscle composition. Let's work on body composition. Let's improve our strength and so forth. And then they want to compete. They want to achieve a higher level of performance. You just kind of upscale that, right? So depending on where these individuals or what population you want to work with might dictate where or what profession you seek. And I know it gets kind of not necessarily chaotic, but maybe it gets, a lot of things going on in your mind when you're trying to weigh out pay scale, you're trying to weigh out benefits, you're trying to weigh out, but I also want you to also keep in mind the environment you're going to work in. Are you in a clinic? Are you in a hospital? Are you in a performance facility? Are you traveling out to people's locations? What does the environment look like? What is the staffing structure? Do you have management? What does the business model look like? There's so much to take into consideration. And this is one aspect, right? If you're looking at how you are working with populations at different stages or different phases of their health, but then you also need to keep in mind, based on this, if they're ultimately toward the injury, illness, or severe injury, illness, toward that regressive state of a health status, you're probably in a clinic, in a hospital, you're in a more structured clinical/medical type of settings. And if you're drifting more toward the recreational, you're drifting more toward the optimized performance, you're probably in a strength and conditioning performance facility, something that's going to be more tied toward optimizing performance. So all in all, I want this more as food for thought of figuring out, okay, when someone fluctuates through this process, what kind of professional do you want to be, in the sense of where in someone's stage or phase of health are you trying to either get them to, right? They're at one place and you're trying to get them to somewhere else, or they're at one obstacle in their life and you're trying to help them overcome it and surpass it. And again, it can be two different aspects. You can be the person providing testing, right? You can do the different clinical tests, field tests, to be able to figure out where they're at, where their deficiencies are, what they need to work on, areas of concern. Or you can also be the person that provides the exercise prescription. So say someone, you could do both. Don't get me wrong, you can do both. But you could also, someone could show you, or the clients or the individual could show you reports, could show you data, and you could look at it and say, okay, based on this information, this is what we need to work. And then you start writing, your exercise programming, your training programming, and you put them through that training process, that training instruction, and so forth. So ultimately, food for thought for figuring out where within the fluctuation of someone's health would you like to help them.